emergency medical technicians, and in the rural areas there's a shortage of volunteers. State Health Department officials concede that lives are being lost. Tonight, Channel 3's Newton Burkett begins the first part of a Night Beat Extra state of emergency.
1996 East Main Street for a baby going into convulsions.
25 minutes into his 16-hour shift tonight, Bridgeport's only on-duty paramedic is on the road.
14 radio, that's East Main Street.
10-4 East Main Street.
For 26-year-old Parker Christopher, a good night means one thing, but a bad night means something else.
They deal with a life and death situation on a daily basis.
Was he conscious at the scene?
Yeah.
She's a little combative. She's refusing to go.
All right, let's hurry up and get these x-rays here. I want to see his chest.
Vitals are 140 over 70.
The clock is ticking.
Three units. You got here first. What exactly happened?
He was on the couch and he started shaking and he wouldn't stop and he fell off it.
What's his name?
He was moaning Nicholas.
Nicholas?
Did you notice if his eyes rolled or anything?
Yes, his eyes went up. Yes, they did. They went up.
And all he was doing was shaking?
It's okay. It's okay.
Parker, what happened here?
Child febrile seizure, convulsion-like. It's pretty common in infants, children under 5. They develop fever, they have a foci in their brain that releases, and they have a seizure. So a common occurrence. If they have more than 2 or more, that's when you need to worry, and that's when they get admitted to PDICU for extensive tests and things on the cerebral.
You gonna be okay?
Oh yeah, he'll be fine.
Pediatric mask, straps, extrication, clips.
Shift change, 5:55 p.m. Volunteers at the Old Saybrook Ambulance Association check in for the night.
Pillows, blankets.
The ambulance service averages only 2 calls a day, both of which came this morning.
Nikki, you could go all night and not get a call.
That's true.
How often does it happen?
Oh, probably about 35, 40% of the time. Could easily.
It'll take these volunteers 3 years to see the number of calls Bridgeport sees in a single month.
You're always anticipating you might be called out on a run. The minute the tone would go off, my legs would quiver. And now I'm so blasé about it, I just go along and do what I have to do, and whether it's cooking dinner or going to bed at night and not sleeping with my clothes on anymore. Anticipating that run that might not happen.
All in all, response times in Saybrook aren't that bad, about 7 minutes. But there's some places in the state where it takes a lot longer than that.
Response times of 20 minutes are not uncommon.
It's a matter of distance. More than half the state is served by rural volunteer ambulance companies.
The patient isn't aware of the fact that, well, I'm way out in the countryside, so my heart attack will wait an extra 6-10 minutes because the response time is going to be slower.
Line over there!
Let's go out into rural Connecticut. And we have the highway accident.
Hang on, guys.
The responders will try and make an assessment.
Second ambulance.
Do I have a severely injured patient? And is this patient dying on me? If the answer to that is yes, we now know it's a LifeStar potential call.
LifeStar Center.
Roger, 33.70. Pulse is 70.
6:05 p.m., the state's only medical helicopter is off the pad at Hartford Hospital. LifeStar has become a major part of the state's answer to slow response times. And in 2.5 years, LifeStar's call volume has almost doubled. A car is wiped out on an icy 2-lane highway 45 miles away in West Cornwall. And LifeStar can make it
LifeStar's on the ground.
in less than 25 minutes.
This driver, wearing a seatbelt or not wearing a seatbelt? Wiggle both feet. Good. Let me take a look at your eyes here. This doesn't hurt. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Nice and slow. Kind of head toward the nose of the aircraft and then we'll come down, okay?
There are people walking around this state, functioning in a normal capacity, that would be dead if it were not for the LifeStar program.
Okay, ready.
It's past midnight, and these three grandmothers will stay on call till 6 a.m. They may or may not need LifeStar tonight. The beepers are on and they're headed home, but chances are they won't even get a call.
We're trying to raise our grandchildren so they'll take over our place.
Tomorrow night, the crisis of volunteers in Connecticut and a rare inside look at one of the state's major trauma centers. Newton Burkett, Channel 3 Eyewitness News on the Night Beat in Old Saybrook.
Channel 3's Newton Burkett continues his Night Beat Extra state of emergency with a dramatic look at the struggles that go on every day in emergency rooms across Connecticut.
Pressure's been around 110. It just sagged at 90, but he's getting some fluid.
Okay. Is he in masks or anything like that?
No. There's a way. They're television people.
733, Trauma Center, Yale New Haven Hospital. And a slow Thursday night here just got busy.
So much for your white cloud, huh? Car was hit right to a tree.
Sir, can you tell me your name? I'm Dr. Vining. I'm one of surgical doctors here at Yale New Haven Hospital.
You know where you're at? All right, let's hurry up and get these x-rays here. I want to see his chest. John, we're going to move you just a hair. It's going to hurt, okay? You're going to be okay.
X-ray.
All right, so here's the plan, okay? We're going to C-spine, we'll get a chest x-ray and a pelvis, okay? We got a 40-year-old guy, high speed, unrestrained, MV8, core versus 3.
Unrestrained, no seatbelt. The force of the impact had crushed his lower abdomen.
He probably has a pelvic fracture. John! Hey! All right, answer me, all right? He's alert and oriented ×3 now, so if he crunches, I'd just go right to the OR.
In severe accidents, the difference between life and death is only a matter of time, what trauma surgeons call the golden hour.
We do have to get going, though, because it's making it very painful and hard for him to breathe.
The aim is to get the critically injured patient to a trauma center and into surgery in less than 60 minutes.
Obviously, we can't do anything with them if they don't bring something in that we can work with. They've done everything right. They let us know ahead of time they were coming. And they took perfect care of him. That's the difference between nowadays and the old days.
If the same man had been injured 15 years ago, he might not have made it. As recently as 1974, ambulances were little more than taxis with lights and sirens. But because so many died before they got to the hospital, ambulance companies and fire departments have practically put the hospital on 4 wheels.
Roger, 4 Kilo 1, I was on the scene. Roger, already notified, and they should be en route.
South Central Connecticut, 21 cities and towns, 600 square miles, 600,000 people.
CMed New Haven to 1 Delta 2.
2 stories underground and no windows. But no matter what's happening, no matter where it's happening, CMed New Haven knows about it.
501, you keep breaking up and you repeat the hospital. Is that Griffin?
It's perhaps a tendency or a desire to want to crawl through that microphone and be transmitted over the airwaves and get right out there and help those medics out and help that patient out.
According to the State Health Department, 3 out of 4 Connecticut residents have either called 911 for an ambulance or know someone who has. But experts are worried that some people may be calling for the wrong reasons and still others may not even be calling 911 at all. According to a state EMS study, roughly 40% of Connecticut's residents wouldn't recognize the classic symptoms of a heart attack and wouldn't call an ambulance. It led the state EMS office to conclude that ignorance is putting hundreds of thousands of residents at risk. But Connecticut is facing a far bigger problem, a critical shortage of volunteers.
If we didn't have the volunteers, there wouldn't be an ambulance responding.
And if there weren't an ambulance responding?
You're going to die. We're going to have to find those volunteers someplace.
What if you don't find them?
Then we're in deep trouble. The entire state will be in deep trouble.
Less than 2 weeks after the surgery that may have saved his life, the accident victim continues to recover. Tonight, he remains in the surgical intensive care unit in serious condition. Newton Burkett, Channel 3 Eyewitness News on the Night Beat in New Haven.
But times have changed. Tonight, Channel 3's Newton Burkett concludes his Night Beat Extra state of emergency with a look at the hazards and stress that go hand in hand with saving lives.
There was an undetermined amount of time lost from the time she went down. Do you want me to...
Everything goes through your head.
11 minutes from Hamden to New Haven, rush hour traffic on Dixwell Avenue.
You laugh, you cry, you have nightmares.
The victim, an 88-year-old woman. New Haven ambulance paramedic Chris Dunn has tried everything. For the past 20 minutes, the only heartbeat he can get out of her is the one he hammers out with his bare hands.
Most people in cardiac arrest don't make it at all. Gene, take the head of the stretcher and guide it. It's a cardiac arrest. It's medicine. That's medicine. Yeah, this was just another cardiac arrest.
Within minutes, Chris Dunn is back on the street, all ready for crisis number 2. A woman lies sprawled across the pavement in the city's New Hallville section.
This is a dream!
All right, well, let's get him checked out.
I don't want to take now!
She's drunk and badly beaten. Probably, they say, the victim of domestic violence.
She doesn't want to go. But obviously she needs to go.
Not making sense with
Raquel.
It's a standoff. Finally, Dunn calls the police, who order the paramedics to take her to the emergency room.
You're going to the hospital.
Down in the project.
Across town, the call is for a 30-year-old woman with chest pains.
Okay, you got AIDS.
It's an occupational hazard that could be fatal, and one reason most EMS workers burn out before they turn 30.
Paramedics and EMTs will tell you the job has always had its risks, but times have changed, and the risk of AIDS is only part of it.
Many paramedics and EMTs have started wearing bulletproof vests. They say they're seeing more gunshot victims than ever before, and most of the time, they get to the scene before the police.
We have been very fortunate in Bridgeport that we haven't had someone severely injured or killed.
The risk is something John Best knows firsthand. He says there's one story he'll never forget.
And the call was for a man shot. We responded to the man shot. I went because one of the EMTs on the ambulance was brand new. People that tried to shoot him came back and started firing shots through the windows. We had to call for the police to rescue us. Once you're rescued, the EMT that had been working for us for about 4 hours got up, said to us goodbye, and we never saw him again. And I think he was scared out of his mind. So was I. I just wouldn't show him that.
PT Barton between building 12 and 13 for the shooting. Building 12 and 13.
We figured it out that I, being a C-shift paramedic, average one and a third shoots a shift. That's pretty good, huh?
There are other Bridgeport ambulances on the way, but Parker Christopher is the only paramedic on duty tonight for a city of 150,000 people.
What's going on?
Haven't found anybody yet. Police haven't, we haven't. Unless you want to check door to door.
It may be the roughest place in Connecticut to be a paramedic, but Bridgeport is being judged against a strict statewide standard. And Eyewitness News has learned that the Bridgeport Ambulance Service is the target of the most intensive investigation in the history of Connecticut's EMS system. The ambulance service's license to practice here may be in jeopardy. And sources say the allegations have to do with faulty equipment, inadequate staffing, and unacceptable response times. At least one of those calls may have contributed to a man's death.
I think the problems are as serious as any system could experience that is as large as Bridgeport and does the volume of work that Bridgeport does. People make mistakes, not the kind of mistakes that involve lives lost or anything like that.
On top of that, Best says that several times in the past few weeks, all 3 of the city's hospitals have been completely shut down to incoming patients because of staffing shortages. Ambulances have been forced to drive even critical cases to neighboring towns for treatment. It is a statewide crisis. Response times in the rural areas, a shortage of volunteers, dangers in the inner city that are causing even the brightest EMS stars to burn out. It's a fact of life that people die, but unless the state can come to grips with its problems, Connecticut will lose more than its share in the 1990s. Newton Burkett, Channel 3 Eyewitness News on the Night Beat.
You know, the comprehensive nature of Newton's reports is fairly apparent, but we might point out he's been traveling with emergency teams across Connecticut for the last 6 weeks.
A wonderful report. Those folks deserve a lot of credit,
No
day
question
in and
about it.
day out.
Well, coming up,